I'd like to think that Michael Caine, in whatever state he is really enjoying himself, is doing exactly what he would be doing if there were no virus, because it's probably the same thing he was doing before. I mean,
I already talked about this. We already said this.
no, but I'm just
Yes,
responding
but
to
I
you.
already responded to that.
I don't remember what you said. I don't even remember how the exchange went.
I said something about Facebook and people checking in during crisis and should he check in. And then you didn't say anything, and I said, does Reddit need Keanu to check in?
Does Reddit need Keanu to check in? What does that mean?
That he's alive during the pandemic.
Okay.
Just like, are you alive if you're in the San
your
Antonio
comment
area and there's
was-
been a shooting?
Your comment was that it's like a wellness check. You were talking about a wellness check, but you think globally there should be a wellness check for every level of celebrity. At what point do you go down the list and say, oh, this celebrity is not important enough for a wellness check? Is it by
how
the time,
many subreddits are there?
Is it by the time you get to character actors like Wallace Shawn, he played the Sicilian from The Princess Bride? He's the little bald guy. Do you do a wellness check on Wallace Shawn, or it's like, who gives a shit?
Well, if you get down to the point where you have like subreddits like Slav squatting, is that where you're just like, do we need this?
I feel like in the 80s, Carrie Elways was like, he's the next leading man, but now he's beneath Wallace Shawn. How did that happen? In prominence.
I don't think he is, but I
Oh,
think he
because
is
of-
in his current state.
Because of Stranger Things. I don't think
No.
that gave him the boost you think
No,
you're
that's
suggesting
not
it
what
did.
I mean. I mean his image is still fresh in people's minds, how he was, not how he is currently.
You don't think he...
I think that he changed himself to such a degree with an American accent, playing bad guys, that people don't recognize that he's the same person from the person in Men in Tights.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you think his public image has been fighting against his own action on talk shows? It's like, you're this dashing English guy on films, but then I see you on a talk show and it's like, you're this serial killer from Los Angeles.
You're Christian Bale complaining about lighting.
He sounds like Christian Bale and when he's doing his American accent. I don't know what's going on there because, as I understand it, he was fully raised adult in England with an English accent, and he came to America and decided to just start doing an American accent.
Yeah, I think that Richard E. Grant wrote about it in his film diaries when he worked with him on
With
Bram
Nail?
Stoker's
No,
Dracula.
he wasn't in with Nail.
No.
Exposed. Fine, I don't know a lot about Richard
I
E.
think
Grant.
he had
Guilty.
I think he had to bunk with him on Coppola's property in a little cabin, and he said that the lack of the British accent was something that you couldn't really even comment on with him.
So
It was odd.
So he did it. He spoke in an American accent, even like to other English people.
Mm-hmm. It was just like, this is who I am now, and apparently it was very strange.
That's I'm just.
And actually, Keanu was there too.
I was going to
I
say
think-
something absolutely horrible, but
I
maybe
think
shouldn't.
is it Keanu who got really drunk one night at a pizza parlor? They all went out together. Richard E. Grant and who were the other castmates? Winona Ryder, Sadie
Was,
Frost.
Billy Campbell
Yes, Billy
from
Campbell.
The Rocketeer.
Hmm. And who else? Anthony Hopkins. A bunch of them went out
Yes,
to
average attention span. Not bringing to you what Internet Movie Database could bring you instantly. The cast and crew of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Well, I don't have an Elon Musk Neuralink attachment yet. You know, my phone is still arm's length.
I think people who do have the attachment will use it for much less interesting things than trying
Do you
to
think
recall
people
who
will
was
just
in
sit
Bram
looking
Stoker's
at porn
Dracula.
all day and have a glazed look on their face like Homer Simpson dreaming about donuts?
I think you just took it immediately to the worst place possible. When there are the other stops along the way you could have gone to first, but you just went to the final destination, not the Devon Sawa final destination. You went to the Paul Rubens final destination. Paul Rubens had a Neuralink, he would never have had any problems. He could have just stayed at home, just watched it in his head.
But there's a lot of studies that say that pornography actually makes it's so detaching that it ruins the experience for a lot of people. So they have to have more increasingly exciting or depraved things to get off.
We're talking about Michael Caine. And now we're talking about masturbation.
No, I think Michael Caine is one of those guys who understands
makes
that
sense to me.
the real thing is okay.
Do you think Michael Caine has ever seen internet porn?
I think
I heard someone talking about it, but I haven't seen it.
I think maybe he glanced at it on someone's phone and was like, "Isn't that strange?" Somebody, I don't know. I can't do a Cockney accent.
And I think that doing a Michael Caine impression is so overdone that it's like, I just feel kind of gross.
I can't even muster the chimney sweep.
Like, you know, even if I do it well, I'd rather just not do it because I don't want to. It's just too common. Like, I feel like
do we need to call up Kevin Spacey?
Yes, but why?
Well, apparently, also in the Richard E. Grant Film Diaries, apparently Kevin Spacey was trotting out a whole lot of different celebrity impressions that he was very adept at, and one of them, I believe, was Michael Caine, and he would do them over and over and over again to impress people. He was very attention-seeking and social climbing, which I guess you'd have to be to some extent to promote yourself in Hollywood. I understand it's a game people have to play, but it lends itself to maybe found narcissism. Even if you didn't start out that way, maybe you're nurturing something you shouldn't. But it breeds something, I think.
In the case of Casey Spacey,
Casey Spacey,
he definitely...
he played a space alien.
I think his fame and his prominence and his success and I think it was all acting on something that he was definitely there to begin with. I don't think it just...
Well, the way Richard E. Grant described it in his writings, it definitely felt as if there was something annoyingly self-centered about it. That sort of, if you were... He's also the one who wrote about Madonna going to that party because he was friends with Sandra... What's her name?
Sandra Bernhard.
Sandra Bernhard. He became friends with her, playing a villain with her on Hudson Hawk. And she was friends with Madonna, and they went to a party at Madonna's house, and she was... We've mentioned it before, I believe, on the podcast. She was staring behind him, and then he found out it was a mirror.
Yes, this is the second telling of the story, and I think, in my opinion, the less interesting telling, because it has fewer details.
Well, the point is, I think he did encounter in his celebrity mishaps a lot of narcissism. People, maybe it just... that's what it takes to become famous in a lot of cases.
Now let's direct the scrutiny at Richard E. Grant. If you see narcissism everywhere, maybe it's not everyone else, maybe it's you, because I feel like...
I also say he's had a successful...
Okay, but wouldn't you... For all I know is his book that you've read passages from to me, and it just seems like everyone in his travels is a flawed, raging narcissist, from Anthony Hopkins to Winona Ryder to Kevin Spacey.
Well, he doesn't say that, though.
To Gary Oldman.
This is my own assumption.
It doesn't?
It's implied in the case of Madonna, but I don't think he really sees it that directly. Some people, like Bruce Willis, and I'm sure Bruce Willis is a narcissist, but and Danny Aiello, it was more like misguided. People who just didn't quite know what they were doing and got a little power hungry.
I heard Danny Aiello as a guest on a podcast, and he said he nearly physically confronted Martin Scorsese at a restaurant because Scorsese had never cast him in any of his films. He said it was like Scorsese was a great artist, like Michelangelo. He was painting a masterpiece with his oeuvre.
And why not me?
Yes, he wasn't in the painting. It was his that's a very Italian way of looking at it, but perfectly suitable.
Maybe Scorsese read that book and found out about his hair. Like, you can't touch Danny's hair.
I feel like
no blood, no mishap can ever happen. with his hair.
There's a chance he did read it, because doesn't it seem like Scorsese only reads books about filmmaking?
And devours them,
I feel like he's probably never read just like a straight fiction novel in his life.
I wouldn't say that. I'm sure he has. He's a storyteller.
Yes,
and
you're
a
right.
student of human nature. So I'm sure he's he's widely read, but definitely I
Yes,
can
I'm making
see him.
extremely grave and probably incorrect statements about Scorsese.
Do you know who mentioned the Durants recently in a tweet?
Which Durants?
Any Durants. The Durants.
The writers of history
Yes.
tomes?
Elon Musk, and it reminded me of a time when I had one of your books, and you wanted to quote from it, but you couldn't because I still had it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something like, you know what the Durants said? And you said, no, I don't, because someone took my copy of the Rise and Fall of Civilization.
So what did Elon Musk say about the Durants?
I don't know, but it seemed more like a name-dropping thing. And
Oh, he's just saying, oh, I'm aware of this?
yes, he wanted people to know he's aware of it and that it's good.
I feel like that's
and
another
people
thing
should read it.
Neuralink will destroy. Like having a lot of knowledge at your fingertips in the sense of being a Jeopardy contestant. It's like, well, dude, everyone can do that now.
Yes, it's
We're all
what
hooked
you
up.
do with it. I remember...
We're almost already there with smartphones. It's like everyone can do that, so it's not impressive.
I'm trying to think back to a YouTube video I recently watched where somebody was saying, who was it? Maybe Brad Mondo talking about hairdressing or something, but somebody had said, that somebody says this is bad, but they don't say why it's bad, or this was good, but they don't tell you why it was good. They don't have their own opinion.
Well, I think that's
to throw into the
how
fray.
normal people usually talk. They're not immediately ready to flesh out their first reaction to things. Usually they will just state their first reaction and assume that they're not going to have to explain themselves. That's just how they're used to talking.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Oh, I
We
like
should
this.
be
Oh,
able
I
to
don't- I
explain
don't like
why
this.
we like or dislike
But a lot of
something.
people aren't practiced speakers or thinkers. I mean, that's a skill you
It's
have
not.
to work
Yes,
out.
it's not about thinking so much. It's speaking. It's not about speaking so much. It's about thinking.
I think for a lot of people, going into their own head is it's like a fantastic journey that they've never taken and will not take.
Like, isn't there a quote by Albert Camus about?
Inner Space with Dennis Quaid.
Yes. But
That was where he got the idea for The Stranger. He was a big Dennis Quaid fan.
Does that follow The Natural with Robert Redford? The Stranger, The Natural, The Great Tomes.
Oh man, can you imagine having your film premiere at a film festival and having it follow The Natural? I mean, I can't think of a better fortune because that film's so unimaginably boring. It's like, oh, they'll like anything after they've been set through that snooze fest. Do you know that little known fact?
Wait, Just Act Natural. Oh my god, I just put it together.
So this story might not be true, and it might be 100% true. So I can't vouch for its accuracy, but apparently in the 70s,
I can couch for its accuracy. I could lay down on a couch right now.
Mariah was actually there, so this is like a first-hand account. And
I'm very old.
that was a huge amount of shade just thrown. Okay, this was in
I
the
need Botox.
okay, this was in the 70s when a lot of people knew who Robert Redford was. A lot of people know who he is now, but
No, don't sit there.
two different things have happened. They've gone in different directions. One is the population of Earth, which is going up in one direction, and the other thing that went down is the proportion of people on Earth that know about Robert Redford. So, therefore, the sum of people who don't know who that is has just risen dramatically. So that's one of the major things that has happened on Earth in the last 30 years. Just millions of people being born and growing up and not knowing who Robert Redford is. And I think that's really interesting. But in the 70s, a lot of people knew who he was. So he could go almost anywhere and be recognized. And you become accustomed to that. You get used to it. So if you get used to it, does it bother you when people don't recognize you? Well, if you're...
Not Samuel Jackson. Apparently he really doesn't like it.
Don't step on this.
I'm a bad dance partner.
And within, if you're to believe this story, which I'm going to tell, shows Redford to be highly sensitive to not being recognized, to the point where the moment of not being recognized is a call to action for Redford to destroy someone's feelings. He was at, I think, a girls' dormitory. I don't think it was co-ed. And for some reason or another, I mean, if it's Redford, you just say he was at a girls' dormitory, and your mind could come up with a variety of reasons for why he was there. It could have been...
That makes me think of another bad movie.
Okay,
Werewolf in a Girls' Dormitory. It was Italian.
You just stepped on my feet. Stop stepping on my feet. They hurt. I guess the obvious thing, he was an old lech, and he was there picking up young college-age girls. But he was probably doing some sort of promotional tour for The Way We Were or something like that, whatever he was promoting at the time. So he probably had a great alibi for picking up young girls, is what I'm saying.
And
both
enjoyed
things,
a lot of success in that area.
It's like both things happened. Okay. But he's in a dormitory. Girls are all around him, and everyone in the dormitory is... fawning over him, wanting photos, wanting his autograph, except for one student who is sitting next to the door, kind of just looking down, reading a book or something. I don't know what she was doing in the story. Redford notices this, and it bothers him. He walks away from the adorning crowd of girls to this lone girl by herself next to the door, and he kind of leans over, very casually as he's walking out the door, and according to this story, the line he uttered is, "Just try to look nonchalant," and then he was gone.
It would have been better if he'd said "act natural."
This is before he made The Natural. The Natural was released.
It would have been better if he'd already made it.
1980.
If he'd already made it and said that. Because then it would have been funny.
So now I have no idea.
Like sort of self-deprecating.
You have a really cool story about Robert Redford, and you've lost whatever we were talking about before, because we're certainly not getting back to it now.
In my mind now, he's Robert Roquefort, like Roquefort cheese. His head is a big wheel of cheese.
Do you know that he and Wilford Brimley were almost the same age in The Natural?
Ah, that's sad for Brimley. Did the beatus get him?
I think that kind of hair loss can do a lot for people's perception of your age. Like, Brimley, I think if he'd had a full head of hair and had shaved the facial hair off, it would have been more obvious, he's not that old. But if he has this kind of halo baldness, which he did have, and he has, like, the walrus mustache, that makes people think you are much older than you are.
Isn't it a character he sort of leaned into, though? Like,
yes,
I can play this.
I don't deny
fill a niche.
That he feasted on the image he authored. I don't know if that was the original.
Kindly grandfather.
I don't know if that was the maiden voyage of...
Good old boyfriend.
That very well could have been the maiden voyage of the Brimley persona, but I do know that, like Morgan Freeman, he didn't make it until he was past 40. So he's like one of these actors that kind of broke out when they were middle-aged.
Yeah, could you say the same of maybe Patrick Stewart? Something similar happened. I know he was a successful Shakespearean actor. No, he always
just looked old, but he was actually successful when he was in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
He was
so it's like a Steve Martin situation.
Yes, it's the Steve Martin effect. If you go gray or you go bald, and that's how people see you for the first time, they just think you never age. And Stewart went bald in his 20s, fully bald, like George Costanza. So
he doesn't have to check in. His wellness check is his Twitter account. He's very active, talking about squirrels and...
At this point, that might be the best thing about
dogs.
Twitter. It's just a wellness check for the aged celebrities.
Yes, that's what it is. Twitter's the wellness check for celebrities.
Is Roger Ebert's Twitter still extant?
I don't know.
And is it still with his last final tweet from almost 10 years ago?
I haven't looked at it lately, but I think so.
What? You didn't want to be sad or something?
Of course. I court the sadness.
But that's not sad because he
I'm hoping Jareth will send me an oubliette if I shed enough lavender tears.
It's a Labyrinth reference. I feel like that it wouldn't make me sad because I think a lot of it's random, and I don't want to say he did it to himself.
No, glitter tears.
But
it's not lavender. This is not Prince.
He made a lot of choices that in life that he knowingly contributed to his health. He was overweight. It's like he knew what he was doing.
Why? This is becoming grim.
Did I say something wrong?
No, but it's becoming
I said something
grim.
right and you don't like it.
That's what truth is,
Okay,
bitch.
if you eat well and you maintain a really healthy body type, that doesn't mean you're not going to get sick, but it increases the odds dramatically that you're not going to get sick.
But I
and if
don't
you do
think-
get sick, you'll have a much higher chance of survival if you're in better health.
This is true. But
So Ebert made those choices. But poor Siskel, he didn't make those choices, and he died before Ebert. Fuck. He was also bald. Fuck.
I don't feel sorry for anyone. I do feel that's a terrible way to die, but and we know that. But
Yeah, we've been reincarnated. We died that way. So we know.
but they were very successful and well loved. So it's good to focus on that.
Yes, they lived a lifestyle where they didn't have to worry about paying their utility bills and had a lot of nice 5-star meals.
Unlike a lot of people right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which the pandemic is really highlighting the difference. But that
I do
too
think
is sort of a downer. I'm sorry.
I think it's
folks.
put a lot of normal, healthy people on an even keel with like the sick and infirm and elderly. It's like, you're in our world now, bitch. Can't leave the house. You're not that interesting. Just go play games. And they did.
So what are a lot of people doing right now? Just watching TV, that's it? Taking walks around their neighborhood?
I just think they're drifting through the neighborhood, staring hopefully at the middle distance, waiting for answers like everyone else, waiting for checks, waiting for yang bucks, so they can just pay their basic utilities. I mean, they don't want yang bucks to buy video games. I mean, that's how they'll mostly be used, but you just say, I need it for my, I need it to keep the water on, and you say that, and then you buy video games. Thank you, Daddy Yang.
Well, see, that's what happened with a lot of people. They're talking about, I finally got my check. I splurged and paid my utility bill. And then I bought some food, and now all the money's gone.
In reality,
Yeah,
they just
damn, I
logged
wasted
on
it.
to Good Old Games and bought all of the titles they've been looking at
I do
the
think
last
that
year.
there were some young people who did that, who were still living at home, and they got the check and they did that. But I don't think that that is most people. I think most people truly need that money, and especially right now. And all the arguments against it are futile in the face of that. Most Americans are hurting and they need the money. They need the bag.
It's just like, the more you know.
If LeVar Burton pops up like a genie right now, I will take it. He can be a beautiful rainbow genie with a butterfly in the sky.
You'll be your genie. It's a K-drama reference. What K-drama was that?
Oh,
Was it-
Mary stayed out all night.
No, that wasn't it.
That wasn't it?
Wasn't it, You Were Beautiful?
No, that was Mary stayed out all
Okay,
night.
what
They
was the
also
big-
had the bus song.
What was the big song from You Were Beautiful? And I think those copyrights are probably held in Korea, so you can just sing it.
But I don't remember. It's been a long, long
it
time
My
since
Precious?
I saw that. No, My Precious is also from Mary Stayed Out All Night.
God damn.
Huh?
Cameras both went to sleep. I'm having to wake them up. No, the cameras, well, my comment was the cameras went to sleep, and I had to wake them up like the girls in a Thai whorehouse. It's time to work. Exactly like that. Time to go to work, girls. So by the grace of God, in Earth human years of our Lord, 2020, on the order of Parker Posey's pantsuit that she wears in Lost in Space.
Her poncho. You got to go with the poncho.
I don't think we
It
reached.
rolls off the tongue.
I don't think we reached consensus about the type of garment it was.
There's several types of garments she wears.
Okay, but if
they all look like she's becoming some, like she's waiting for Zool.
You can.
It's sort of an 80s.
Okay, anyone can call anything whatever they want because we live in a free country and we live in a free earth. But
So far.
to me, a pantsuit is anything where the pants are connected to the top. If it in that case, it's a pantsuit. Even if it has an excessive amount of material, it doesn't stop
It
being
could
a
also
pantsuit.
be termed a speed suit.
What's that?
Sort of like a jumper you wear to go work on cars to protect your clothing beneath.
Are you dropping sartorial knowledge on me?
I don't know. I'm using procedural memory. How do you say that? I know cops use that term a lot.
I think you're saying you are going into your mind palace.
No, this is not stuff that's in the Mind Palace.
Okay, but you're the one who told me.
I
about
think
the
of the
mind.
Mind Palace as being more a place where you put something very special. And
You were the
important.
one who explained to me what the Mind Palace was, and I understand that came out of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. Well, no, the Mind Palace is a.
I'm so wrong.
I'm so sorry.
My ship is filling up with water. Please get a bucket, Mariah. You got to write
Get a
this shit.
coconut.
Get a
Preferably one that hasn't been masturbated in.
Okay. So
He got it in the ear, like
Okay.
Iggy.
oh, it's an Iggy Pop reference. I think that was from what was the name of the album that song was on? Was it just called Iggy Pop, or did it have a
The
different name?
Stooges, right?
No, he wasn't at the Stooges with that.
Oh,
part.
you're talking about
No, I'm talking about the song you're talking about, which I know is from his big solo album that was produced by David Bowie. Because Bowie thought, oh, he needs some hits or he's going to be broke forever, so I'm going to help this guy out.
I should know this because you made a shrine with my Iggy Pop CDs once. Not just once, but several times. Anytime I re-entered my room, there was a new shrine built with the CDs.
And you put a David Bowie sticker onto our Honda Civic that, as the years
Raw
progressed,
Power. It was an album that was particularly beloved by Kurt Cobain.
That's absolutely... Okay, that's wrong. Because Raw Power was a Stooges album, and we're talking about his debut album as a solo artist, which was years after Raw Power was released.
Okay, what are we thinking of? Oh, I know what you're talking about. The Passenger.
Yes, with Lust for Life, the song you were referencing.
Yes.
So what the fuck are you talking about?
Drugs.
I mean, I think you're on
Let's
them.
all...
Because you're the person who told me all of this. You were the Iggy Pop specialist in my life.
Dude, it's old, and it's late, and...
Did you throw that out the window like you're in a hot air balloon? It's like, to get higher, we need to dump some of this luggage.
I threw it out like Sawyer threw himself out and lost.
What
to
do you
save the
care about?
helicopter.
I mean, those were like your values. It's like, what are you if you're not made out of references to 70s rock stars? What's left?
I think the same thing that happens to 70s rock stars. I mean, you could ask the same thing of them. I doubt they remember much of it. I took some Motrin, so I'm on drugs.
I guess it's technically a drug. Is that the isn't ibuprofen the one that you're not supposed to take with coronavirus, or is that just something else that's been disproven, like bad
I
information?
don't know. I know that that's the one they're talking about, but I don't know if it's bad information.
Is it bad company?
Wasn't that produced by Jimmy Page?
Yeah, this isn't funny.
And wasn't he actually on drugs when they were recording their debut album, and they found him curled up in the corner asleep in the middle of the afternoon, and no one could wake him, and they thought he was dead.
Do you think
the original story I was going to tell, all of those actors who were working on the set of they were rehearsing on Coppola's ranch for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they decided to go down into this little California town and to a little pizza place, and they got drunk playing darts, and they had to carry Gary Oldman out because he drank so much, because he's an old drunk.
So earlier you
Can you
thought
imagine Keanu Reeves?
earlier
and
you thought Keanu
Billy
Reeves was the
Campbell.
person who got drunk. But
No,
that is
I
out
was-
of character
I was
behavior
reaching.
for Keanu Reeves to the
So I
extent
knew
where
it
that,
wasn't
that
him.
couldn't have been possible.
No, I knew it. I knew it wasn't him.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves showed up at our bar one night. It was fucking wild. Said no one ever.
No, he's that would be very out of character. I think he wants to be out of character. He tried to play something like that recently, and
Didn't he try to be like a rock star at one point? He had like a band where he was the guitarist.
yes, he had something akin to what Jared Leto was doing,
But it wasn't like,
and Johnny Depp.
no, but I feel like even with them, it's more like a rock star thing. I think with Keanu, it was more like, oh, Fountains of Wayne. It was like really lame and kind of
Because he has that sort of sense of humor.
like easy core.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't hardcore.
I think it was just something he was doing and not so much promoting, more like a hobby. I don't think Keanu reads that much into anything he does.
I'm just saying he wasn't on a highway to hell at any point in his life.
No.
He's a very zen, calm kind of guy who looks like he mostly just enjoys being in a meditative state. And
Basically, he's most of his characters.
according to YouTube videos that I won't click on, but YouTube won't fucking stop recommending to me, he just hangs out with his motorcycles, which he's very proud of.
Have you seen his girlfriend? She's some sort of reputable artist.
Have you seen the pyramids along the Nile?
Is that Sandra Dee?
I guarantee you that's
Who
more
sang
interesting
that?
than Keanu Reeves' girlfriend.
Who's saying that?
I wasn't born in 1947.
I'm actually now thinking about Down and Out in Beverly Hills because there's a scene where Bette Midler, after she's had good sex with the hobo played by Nick Nolte.
Does he give her an O?
Yes, apparently. And
Perfecto.
I think she's smoking a cigarette and listening to that album, that song.
Was that film released before or after When Harry Met Sally? Because I remember famously
I think before.
when Harry Met Sally has like a really famous orgasm scene, but then Down and Out in Beverly Hills also has an orgasm scene.
Don't
I
you
mean,
feel
who ate whose lunch?
Harry Met Sally seems more inspired by things. The tone of it and the look of it seems to be more inspired by the style of something like Annie Hall, and then something like the type of era and movie that Down and Out in Beverly Hills feels more like Talking Heads,
how you-
Born Under Punches.
I like how you called Nick Nolte that hobo.
Well, it works even now.
Okay,
I think he's always been that hobo.
if you had to bet a large amount of money on it, this issue, you won't have to, but just pretend. Who do you think would be more likely to give a woman like a magnificent O? Nick Nolte or Billy Crystal?
I feel like I need to make a pros and con list and really think about that.
So what are the pros of Nick Nolte? Because at least with Billy Crystal, you can say, oh, he's funny and easygoing.
Yes, I feel like Nick Nolte would be more humorless, but there's a quality of him like a ruggedness, a more manliness.
Like he has a beast mode and Billy Crystal doesn't.
Yes, and a lot of women want that beast mode. They want to be defiled in a way.
Careful. You're getting very careful to saying
Well,
no
men
means
too.
yes sometimes.
No, it
Which
doesn't.
until
but
until 1998, it's like you just took that for granted. Of course it does.
it actually reminds me of a Yukio Mishima quote. God, I'm full of really horrible quotes. I mean, not that the quotes are horrible, but dropping them is horrible.
No, I'm just clarifying. I'm not saying I ever thought that in my entire life, but there was once upon a time it was just like you had a lot of manly men, and you know, of course they'd say that.
Well,
I mean,
no,
that was just like
it could be
the prevailing thought.
I should not say
on
women.
relationships.
I should not say women. I should say people in general want that because they want love. I mean, the quote I was referencing, I'm trying to remember it. I'm not sure. It's something about true beauty should, wreck and defile and conquer.
And it's also-
I think people in a sexual sense, when they're in love, want that.
But people also have this gear they can go to where it turns them on so much more when a physical interaction with another person just can be reduced to animal lust. It's like we are beyond words. So this is something primal. This is something early human. This is this ritual, that goes beyond all of our book learning.
I do think that most people either want to be chased or to chase. I think in relationships, and that's the animal lust part of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about relationships so much because that's something different. That's more of a friendship. That's more the Billy Crystal side of it.
And we're not talking about people chasing each other who don't know each other. That's something else.
That's Craigslist. But I think that you would want Billy Crystal in a relationship because he would be sensible. He'd be a good roommate. Mm-hmm. He'd be a good listener. He'd be a good partner in life and make good choices. A good wagon to hitch yourself to. You don't think
that guy has a sexual animal within him that can be summoned and released?
I'm sure he does to some extent. He probably is very fun in bed. And then that's when you're talking about real love. Real love, it's going to be fun for you no matter what if you're in love.
No, not fun. Do you think he can turn into Gary Oldman's werewolf from Bram Stoker's Dracula? You think that's in Billy Crystal? Because I think Nick Nolte is that constantly.
I don't know. Nick Nolte seems like he has a slow down.
Well, definitely now, because at this point he must be 80.
Didn't he drink a lot?
I think if he beast moded, it would be his final beast mode.
He's one of those people who... Nick Nolte, check into Twitter. We need a wellness check.
Oh, did he die of corona? No, he died of an erection. It took all of the blood the rest of his body needed.
But yeah, I think you made the point. There's nothing else that needs to be said about that.
I was just thinking about since we're talking about that, the next idea is extraterrestrials, and I was just thinking.
Wait,
about
where'd that come from?
That's like the perfect expression for them, because don't you think every time you've seen one of them and what they do, and whether it's in movies or
seen one of what,
or whether it's in extraterrestrial in like movies or fiction, wouldn't you?
You're talking about fictional extraterrestrials
or anywhere. Would you? Don't you think you would describe their behavior as being?
Are you probing me?
No.
Are you probing me for personal experience?
That's exactly what I mean. Probing. Don't you think they're very extra? So that's like.
Should I just agree?
Don't you think that's a very extra behavior? Like,
of the fictional aliens,
or the real aliens too. It's like it's just all they just make everything about themselves. It's not about you. It's like what we need from you.
Well, isn't that what Elon Musk is doing with his trip to Mars? I mean, if he builds a colony on Mars, it's all about what we want from that planet. Its resources, its
so we are the
space.
Aliens. But unless there's some huge revelation that's forthcoming, as far as we know, Mars doesn't have intelligent life, so we're not imposing ourselves on anything but bacteria and microorganisms.
Well, there are only so many reasons to.
Unless Elon Musk is bringing it all home to his people who are underground in Mars waiting for his return, which is completely plausible.
Especially with Grimes.
Oh, he found another one of his kind while he was here.
Yes, on Twitter during a wellness check.
But even E.T., the movie, the extraterrestrial, the alien uses a suburban family he uses them and puts their life at risk to get back home. It's like, I'm going to use you. Go get all of these things I need to make my interdimensional communicator. I don't care if you get caught. I don't care if you fail school. I don't care if you die. I just want to call my alien friends back to pick me up. It's like E.T. doesn't give a shit about Elliot.
Well, it's less about him being an extraterrestrial and more about him being someone who's lost, a stranger in a strange land.
Oh, yes. So
there's a survival instinct that kicks in.
It was a mutual exchange. E.T. taught the boy about love, so it's worth it. Is that what you're saying?
Is this Michael Jackson or E.T.?
I was going to say, why didn't Jeffrey Jones just say that? I was just teaching him about love, like E.T.
That's not what I mean. I mean that when you find yourself adrift in a strange land, you either have a survival instinct that kicks on and you're going to do what you have to do to get back to where you need to be.
So, like Florida?
Or you're going to die.
Florida? Can we get through a single episode without dumping on Florida?
Florida dunks on itself.
So speaking of extraterrestrials, I keep hearing about, mostly from you, this thing that's happening right now.
Oh. Apparently, a lot of people in Rio de Janeiro and a small town near Rio de Janeiro called Maje. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right.
Mahjong. So that's where the game came from. The Chinese just took it. That's not funny.
They are buying up a lot of Brazil. But there was these lights in the sky that were behaving. Oh man, these lights in the sky that were behaving strangely. Very exciting. A lot of people filmed it. Apparently 2 and then 3 more military helicopters came out and began chasing this one very large light that was glowing red.
Military helicopters. Just, I'm really shocked. Brazil has a military? Or were these like helicopters from an American base in Brazil, which just feels more orderly and just makes me feel better?
Well, maybe I should get to that. So a lot of people filmed this for about, I think, several hours, and the helicopters were chasing this light in the sky, and then it went from red to blue, and then it crashed in the forest in Maje.
D.B. Sweeney could tell you that chasing a light in the sky
Will
will always and only lead to some kind of internal,
acting obscurity?
some sort of internal intrusion that you didn't ask for or approve of in a scary place.
Well, that was a Hollywood rape of the true story. If anybody looks on YouTube and finds interviews from Travis Walton,
That's a really heavy word, raping of the
well,
story.
apparently they made it into a sci-fi horror film, and what really happened was he had a very gentle, nice experience.
So, he didn't get raped by the aliens. The source material got raped by Hollywood, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, but why even call it that? I mean, does Hollywood get anything right? Did Amadeus rape the story of Mozart? Because that was almost entirely fictional. There was very little that was
Well, it's
backed up by
certainly
what we know
strong
about
language.
Mozart.
It's strong language for
Well,
strong feelings.
I think you feel very strongly about it, but don't you think there are people out there that feel very strongly about Salieri and how his name got dragged by Amadeus?
I don't think those people are listening to this podcast.
I'm sure some of them are listening to the podcast.
Out of our 22
Do you
subscribers, someone knows all about this.
Do you hate Salieri that much? He was actually
Didn't we hear some of his music
in his time
last year?
Salieri was, I've heard quite a bit of his music in my life. There's tons of it available on YouTube, and he was as popular or more popular than Mozart for points in his life. And,
I would need a refresher.
And he worked very hard, just like Mozart, to get where he was. And anyway, what were you saying about aliens? Okay, tell me about Mahjong.
Well, the people observing this and filming it with their phones were numerous and all over the city, and they saw these lights in the sky that were being chased by these military helicopters turn from red to blue and then crash in the forest, which followed several hours of strange lights and loud noises from the forest.
So at this point, I'm thinking bottle rockets. They changed colors and then made a loud noise.
No, there's photos of this, and it's very large and impressive. And the next day, the military, and they don't know if it was Brazilian military or U.S. military, closed the area down.
Photos or video?
Photos and video.
Okay.
Both.
Because whenever you hear one of these stories and miraculously there are only photos and they're only horrible photos, it's like it always raises my suspicions.
Within 18 hours of the event, Brazilian Twitter was blowing up. You couldn't really, researching Brazil and UFO would not bring it up, but they call it OVNI.
Mm-hmm.
That's their term for it. So OVNI Brazil on Twitter was blowing up with all of these photos and videos, and a lot of them were being taken down. So people were screaming conspiracy, government intervention, because the following day, the military were shooting down drones that tried to enter the airspace and closing off the area entirely. There were still lots of loud noises coming from the forest.
That the Brazilian government or whatever agency could be possible for such takedowns must be aware of the Streisand effect, whereas if you try to conceal something, it just becomes even more popular.
Isn't that also the Beyonce strong arm effect?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I get that reference. But do you think the Brazilian government...
and I love Beyonce, so I'm not knocking her, but that was an unfortunate picture.
Do you think Brazil knows about Barbra Streisand? I mean, you have to know about her before you can know about the effect. Do you think Yentl made it to Brazil? Or do you think that's just all very confusing?
I think it did. It's had a lot of time to circulate.
No, but you could say that Tommy Tricker and the Stamp Traveler has had a lot of time to circulate, but
it wasn't as popular.
Some dogs aren't going to make it all around the track. Some of them are just going to expire.
Yentl wasn't that mainstream.
I tried to watch it recently because it was recently made free on YouTube Movies, and it's very boring. It's very boring. Mandy Patinkin is in it.
I know. I like Mandy Patinkin, but it is very boring. The thing I can't stand about that film is that she's playing a person. It's a period piece, and she's playing sort of something that is historically inaccurate in that she keeps the long nails. She would not cut her nails for the part.
And also, it's supposed to be like...
she's supposed to be a young girl
what
playing
century
a
is
young
this supposed
boy.
to be? The 18th century?
Yes.
Okay, but she's acting like 70s Barbra Streisand.
And by long nails, I don't mean her nails were a little long. I mean like nails you go to a salon to get. Like acrylic nails.
And wasn't her age also a source of criticism for the part?
Because she was too old.
She was almost 40 at that point, and she was supposed to be playing like a late teenager, early 20s kind of characters, someone in that age range.
Well, we're getting off the UFO thing, though. We've veered away. But so this thing fell in the forest, whatever it was chased, it fell, there were strange lights and sounds. It's all people in Brazil were talking about. There were a lot of memes being made about it, and on Brazilian Twitter, and these videos and pictures were popping up everywhere, both of the light in the sky being chased, but also of the military presence the following day. You know, lots of helicopters and planes and jets and cars loaded with soldiers going into the forest. So something happened, and a lot of people are wondering, could they be downing UFOs, or could it be,
I don't want to tell Brazil how to run its country, but when you talk about the use of those kinds of resources, we've deployed planes, soldiers, we're putting money into this problem. It just makes me think, okay, so what were you doing with like the favelas? Okay, you'll spend money chasing UFOs through the forest, but you won't give the favela like a working sanitation system. Maybe it has one. Maybe my knowledge isn't up to date. My knowledge of the favelas stopped growing after I saw City of God.
Many nations, especially our own, have poured lots of money into the military and all kinds of military projects. So who knows where all that money's going.
So maybe the lights everyone saw was a military project.
It could have been. The only reason people are thinking downed UFO is because...
that the most likely explanation is usually in the case of these things.
There's actually... This is on the heels of the Pentagon releasing their video of unidentified ships.
Yes, I saw that, but wasn't that footage from over 10 years ago?
Yes.
Like from 2008.
And I think it was only released because it had been leaked last year.
But I'm going to make a really bold statement, and it might sound insulting, but it's not meant to be. It's just like it's like an environmental observation. Like, I live in this world, and I get to comment on it, and I just notice things that happen, just like anyone else. I think the kind people who want to, be true believers in this sphere, they'll just believe almost any story they hear. I think for those people who experienced both of these stories, which were very close together because they occurred in almost the same news cycle, the Brazilian sightings and the release of this footage that's over 10 years old. I think for these people, simply because they happened in the same news cycle, that's sufficient evidence to support the claim of a link between them.
Well, it's...
I think for these people, they're thinking it's the same aliens, just because I learned about this
Well,
at the
the
same
government
time.
has this week admitted that they have an ongoing investigation into UFOs. And a lot of people have said, you know, it's different, the idea that they had an investigation at one point for a short duration, but the idea that there's an ongoing investigation, an ongoing project for this is unsettling.
Okay, but what is the...
And the Tic Tac it's very impressive if you watch it, especially the pilot commentary and the pilots who were involved. Which cat is
I hear
that?
a cat bellowing. But is there are people saying there is a link between the Brazilian sightings and the Tic Tac?
Well, no, it's just now we're thinking in terms of if there are UFOs, whether they're Chinese or Russian from another dimension.
I was trying to say something really insulting and you didn't pick up on it. I was trying to say simply because these things have been announced in the same news cycle, a lot of people out there are just like, it's connected.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you wonder?
Oh, you're one of these people. Okay. Hello. Why don't you flesh out the theory behind how they could possibly be connected?
I was trying to.
I wasn't hearing that. I was just hearing you praise the impressiveness of the Tic Tac video.
Well, it is impressive and it's very interesting, but the most interesting part is that the government's saying they do not know what it is and that they have an ongoing investigation into unidentified aircraft and that this is something that's happening. So it makes people wonder if we have this investigation ongoing, if there are craft that behave mysteriously in a way that we don't understand, technology that seems beyond us, and we're actively investigating this and we don't know where it's coming from.
Don't you think it's an incredibly bad look for the Brazilian government if they were chasing in jeeps through the jungle something that turned out to be U.S. military technology that they had mistaken for extraterrestrials? It's like they're saying the U.S. military is so much more advanced than us that we mistook them for aliens.
Well, what are we saying?
Just saying that's very embarrassing for
what
Brazil.
If it's the Chinese? What if they have something so advanced we don't know what the hell it is?
Like, do you remember Lawrence of Arabia when they like chase after the planes like on camels? It's like really embarrassing.
Why are you trying to put down Brazil so hard?
And it's even more embarrassing because
this is like Hulk Hogan trying to body slam some little dude.
Willow.
Yes, you're body slamming Willow.
Are just trying to make Willow come down a flight of stairs as fast as Hulk Hogan can. Well, as fast as Hulk Hogan could in 1995, because I think
that sounds like something they would have done in 1995 as a promotional thing.
Well, I think in 1995, Hulk Hogan could have found a faster way to get Willow down those stairs than letting him walk himself. I think Hulk's not a genius, but he could have made those calculations.
It's like a Master Blaster situation.
I think Warwick Davis would have been aerial within moments.
Is Tina Turner going to come out and tell us we don't need a hero? Speaking of, I hear the new Mel Gibson... I think she'd say we need an
ambulance because there's a very damaged little person
in
Highland around here.
Have you seen the trailer for the new Mel Gibson movie?
No.
It looks awful. I couldn't get through half of it.
No, but embodied in that reaction was also the information that I am learning about... I am relearning that there's someone called Mel Gibson because I don't think I've heard his name mentioned since the start of the quarantine. So it's like, Mel Gibson. That's a blast from the past.
He got Kate Bosworth to be in a movie where he plays her father, and basically he's playing sort of a one of those...
Kate, was she the one from the Surfer movie?
Yes.
So I feel like at this point she'd be playing his wife. Or she might be too old for that. Like, oh,
she's aged out. She's aged out of the what is it? The Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, no. The joke
range.
was
25. You gotta broom him.
I missed the joke. It should have been she's playing his mother at this point.
Yes, that was the real cheese.
But
At the end of
isn't
that
hasn't Mel Gibson been better about that than other actors in his career?
Perhaps, but he there are some things he's not better about. All this is supposed to be set in God, I'm really getting away from the topic, but this is supposed to be set in during the hurricane in Hurricane Maria.
He did
I
appear
think
in What Women Want with Helen Hunt. I mean, talk about charity. I mean, that's she looks like Whistler's mother. Go on.
Why are you dunking on Helen Hunt again?
Oh fuck.
Leave the lady alone.
Speaking of really nice meals, she's had a lot of them, so I'll do what I want. This is not hurting her. This is just talk. I want some of those nice meals.
No, but this was during the Category 5 hurricane in Puerto Rico. It's set during something recent and historic, and he plays sort of a MAGA curmudgeon who doesn't want to leave his house and is causing a lot of trouble for the police, and then someone in the building gets shot and he's a mobster or something.
So he plays John Malkovich's character from Bird Box.
Kind of. I don't remember Bird Box. But then I think I fell asleep in the beginning and woke up at the end.
John Malkovich was playing a character that was obviously supposed to be like a disbelieving boomer that wasn't going to be told anything. But of course he gets his comeuppance by Sandra Bullock.
Well, see, that's what happened, except that there was no comeuppance. When it turns out there's some sort of heist going on in the building.
Of course. Mel Gibson was right all along, wasn't he?
Suddenly he opens up some closet and he has a massive gun collection, and they need those guns.
This is the difference between John Malkovich's Okay, Mariah, yes, one of our cameras shut down, so now we have a new battery in it. And why don't you finish your thought about whatever Mel Gibson has been doing in quarantine?
I don't think this is in quarantine. This is previously
Obviously.
filmed, but...
well, he's promoting it in quarantine.
But it's set during the hurricane, the really devastating hurricane in Brazil, and it's a heist movie. All the bad guy... Brazil... in Puerto Rico, and all the bad guys are Puerto Rican and all the good guys
Same
are
thing.
That's what he said.
If Mel Gibson already looks like Saddam Hussein being extracted from a hole in the ground, if he looked like that before quarantine, what does he look like now in quarantine?
Probably the way he looked on the side of the road when the police stopped him.
Oh no, he looked much better then, Mariah. I mean, he could be like Helen Hunt's father now.
Again, these are millionaires, which doesn't mean we should shit on them, but we could ransom that. They could pay us money not to shit on them.
So what does this
then
have?
We could be millionaires too.
Oh, Ransom! It's a Mel Gibson classic. Good.
I'm checking all the boxes.
What does this have to do with UFOs?
Nothing.
What does it have to do with Brazil?
Nothing. But yeah, so there's this thing in Brazil and nobody knows what happened, but a lot of people are talking about it. It's apparently, I hear from Brazilians on Reddit that mainstream media there is covering it, but our mainstream media has not picked up on it.
So you said it was...
they probably don't think it's of any importance.
Was this the TikTok or is this the other one?
The Maje downed UFO.
Okay, so TikTok is the one from 10 years ago.
Not TikTok, Tic Tac, because it looks like a Tic Tac.
Okay, and they were both moving around in all degrees.
Well, they were doing maneuvers that the Navy pilots described as being defying the normal laws of physics.
Didn't Lenny Kravitz have like a song where one of the lyrics was, I want to move around in all degrees? Maybe it was him. Maybe he did it.
Yes.
Does anyone else remember the nepotism one-off that was his daughter's attempt at an acting career that began and ended with X-Men First Class?
I don't think it did end. Isn't she in Big Little Lies?
No.
I haven't seen it yet, but I hear she's doing very well in that.
I'm just saying it makes me so happy when an attempt at nepotism spectacularly fails. Unless I get really rich one day and have children, but then my nepotism will be perfectly executed and will go exactly as I plan it to.
It won't be like what's her name? The one from Chicago who married, who am I thinking of? Catherine Zeta-Jones. Apparently she's been pushing her daughter a lot
When you
in
said
magazines.
Chicago, I thought you were going to talk about the Pritzkers. I must say, oh no, Mariah, that's some of the best nepotism ever.
Catherine Zeta-Jones's daughter was heavily criticized online for a comment she made. It was like Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, about she was like 15, but she said that she had something like she'd worked very hard and taken a lot of hard knocks to get to where she is. And it's like, but you're 15, even if there wasn't nepotism involved, how many hard knocks could you have taken?
I think she probably banged around on the same back street as Daniel Day-Lewis's son, which is hardcore. It's the hardest core. It's harder than the core with Hilary Swank and Aaron Eckhart.
That's when you Daniel Day-Lewis it.
Or when you realize, oh, I won an Oscar for $1 Million Baby, but now I'm co-starring with Aaron Eckhart, then you lose it.
Don't you want Nick Nolte to go beast mode on all of them?
What if...
Then those are the real hard knocks.
What if Nick Nolte had been the lead in the core instead of Aaron Eckhart? Would it have not bombed?
What if...
Say this. Say you. Say me.
Don't bring Lionel Richie into this.
I don't know the name of the actor from Hung, but I know you're going to say, oh, he looks like Aaron Eckhart,
Yes.
and I agree.
I'm glad we got that out of the way, but...
So I cleaned it up and dismissed it.
Sent it on its way, dusted it off, but...
The actor from Hung is like, if you took...
I like him very much, I just can't remember his name.
If you took Christopher Lambert, but extracted all of the French pedo-ness, you'd have the actor from Hung.
What actor would you have if you only had the French pedo-ness?
It's like, what bonfire do I want to set to whose ego career? There's
Not that many people are watching this. They're safe.
No, but what if this becomes popular in the future and people find the old episodes?
In the
and
future,
our
most
careers
people
ruined,
will not be checking in
and
to
we
Twitter.
can delete all of these. And just, at that point, we'll be running a very clean channel where we don't curse like Good Mythical Morning, and then we'll just delete all of these episodes. Well, anyway, aliens.
What if the actors, I want to say this, what if the cast of Bram Stoker's Dracula, instead of climbing into a hot air balloon on Coppola's property, which did happen, an alien ship emerged from the clouds and collected them, and they went into another dimension, creating an alternate timeline and alternate versions of themselves that continued to make the movie. But then this other ship with these actors, unaged, came back and crash landed in Brazil. And we're about to see Gary Oldman, still inebriated, carried from the forest.
I think when Winona Ryder realized there was another version of herself, younger, wandering around the forest in Brazil, it would blow her mind harder than anything you could possibly imagine. It would be like the biggest shit man moment in human history.
But would Gary Oldman's crumpled little body resembling E.T. in the ditch, would that pass for sufficiently extraterrestrial to make it to one of the TMZ magazines? Found alien remains.
I think you're seriously overestimating how obscure and unknowable that imagery would be to Brazilians. Do you know how many Brits go there as tourists and get
Again.
pissed drunk and pass out?
And it's probably been Gary Oldman himself many times
So the photos,
prior to his sobriety.
you're concocting this extravagant time traveling event to create these photos, but you don't need all of that. Those photos probably already exist.
But it'd be more fun if it was them. Everything in life would be more fun if it was them.
And you
That's
know,
why Reddit loves Keanu.
As the time travelers from Bram Stoker's Dracula were leaving the forest, you know who the first person they'd meet would be? Dr. Greer.
Because he's always at these events.
He'd just say, I was waiting.
Phoenix Lights, I was there. Now, I read recently an account of someone who had gone, I read this on Reddit, an account of somebody who had gone on one of Dr. Greer's, what are they, seminars, weekend getaways, where he takes a bunch of people out into the Joshua Tree, into the desert, and they do all sorts of kinds of meditations and use devices to locate alien
And
ships.
he does this for free out of the goodness of his heart and just to expand human knowledge.
No, he does this for money.
Okay.
The person posting had said that he seemed to be very talking about narcissist. He was very he seemed to be a big narcissist and believed that's why he pursued this career, because he'd been a successful ER doctor.
Oh shit.
But and that the man could talk and talk and talk and talk, and all of that was true. He was very attention seeking, but
He's
that
a bit
didn't
like
mean that what he was doing wasn't actually doing something. That
there's this
the
other guy,
information he was gathering
Howard.
wasn't actual.
You've heard of Howard Bloom? He's like
It
this.
sounds
He's this
familiar.
guy he's a writer. He's been around. He's been kicking around the music industry since the '60s. He's hung out with bands. He's written articles about them. He's like one of those
That's
beat
probably
writers.
where I heard it.
But he's appeared on Joe Rogan and he's been on other podcasts, and he's like a huge, like, egotistical windbag. Basically, every story is about him. Even if he's talking about Mick Jagger or David Bowie, it was not about him meeting them. It was almost like they met me, and this just adds to my legacy. And it's just one of those people, and it's like you're saying, oh, Dr. Greer is one of these people.
Well, I think he himself presents himself as one of those people. It's always about him, his experience, what he believes. He seems to represent himself as someone who pushes himself on people and then reimagines the entire experience as being something bigger or better than it actually was.
Mm-hmm. Because if the experiences you've had are more important in these people's minds, it means I am more important.
Yes.
Because I've been involved in all these
So it
important
can't be
things.
anything but of the highest importance. So he has to emphasize that a lot. And
So why didn't he just say, I met Michael Jackson? I mean, Jackson isn't around to deny it. I mean, is that that's to me, that's bigger than seeing aliens
well, I
over
could
Phoenix.
I could see him doing that, but that does not mean that the organization that he has established and the people working for him and the information that he's actually accumulated doesn't have some merit. I'm sure it does. Especially with these accounts that these people have been out there and have actually seen
Corey
things.
Feldman has been saying he met Michael Jackson for years, so that might not be true.
What if it's not?